Good evening, good evening, good evening. Hello, good evening to everybody. Hello. I want to finish, well, not finish, I want to wrap up my lecture on African American culture, and this part is about the males. The other day I started doing a live, I started to talk about this topic, but I was really upset. And so I want to really say what I want to say in the veridiction and the logic sense of what I want to say. If you want to talk about the African American males, you can say that there is a division. There's a division with the men in the streets, the men in the ghettos, the males who are part of the mass, the males who are part of the poor. There's a division between those males and the males who graduated from college, the males who have homes, and the males who have whatever they have accumulated, whatever financial wealth they have accumulated. There is a difference. But at the same time, there is also the common structure of the culture that represents within all these males. There is an element of greed. They are all greedy, and the greed manifests in other ways. For example, a lot of times African Americans, they'll go to other cultures and they'll take the cultures of other cultures and they'll come back to the USA and turn these cultures into their own. But they will not represent the culture in the truth of the culture. They will just do it in the part that where it suits them, the part that's relevant to them, where it suits their needs or it suits the propaganda. For example, African American males, they go to the East and they copy the culture of polygamy. While they copy the culture of polygamy, they come back to the USA to manifest the culture of polygamy, but they don't come back in the veridiction of polygamy. They just manifest it in the greed that they are, in the greed that they are generic, greedy humans. So the African American male, he's going to want to have many girlfriends, but he's not going to want to follow the other parts of polygamy, because for him, it's just the part that suits him that he's making relevant to his needs. He doesn't care about the rest of what polygamy involves. He just cares about the part that suits his greed. He doesn't care about the other part, because to be in a polygamous relationship is a lot of work. But he's not going to care about any of that. He's not going to care about the structure. He's not going to care about the true tradition of polygamy. He's just going to take the part where it says you have more than one woman, and he's going to justify it to suit his agenda, to suit his propaganda. But it's not going to be to stay in the logic of what polygamy is. I think that part of it is the nature of the beast. I think that part of it is the structure of the slaves. And I think that part of it is also where it becomes self-destructive, because these other cultures, those habits, those manifestations that they represent, they've been doing it for thousands of years, and they have had time to polish it where it is structured. Like, for example, a lot of the countries where the people practice polygamy, there are rules, and the people who practice them, they must adhere to those rules. But the African American males, they don't want to hear about the rules, because they are hard and they require discipline, and most of all, they require financial wealth. So a regular African American guy is gonna want to have two girlfriends, but he doesn't have any money, and so he's gonna blame the girls. He's not going to blame himself for not having any money to keep up a polygamous relationship. He's going to blame the women. He's going to say, well, y'all are greedy. You women don't understand anything. You women are no good. You women are whores. And that is the plight of the African American women. The African American women, they are the most truthful element of the African American culture. And that's a fact. So, like, a black woman will tell you, and even if a black woman is destroyed, they will still carry an element of truth. They will still carry some realness to them. So the African American women, they are the constant element. They are the most truthful of, or you could say valuable element to the African American male. But the African American male, he doesn't estimate her to be that valuable. She's not valuable to him because it's better to blame her for not wanting to have a polygamous relationship rather than to go work and make enough money to be able to afford two women. So the African American male, the other trait that is of uttermost characteristics to it, and I'm going to transition into it, is how he treats his women. The way that the African American male treats his women is pure slavery. It's pure a trait of slavery. Like, I have to say this before I continue. I have to say, in the United States, and in as far as what I know, and as far as the places I've been and what I know, in the United States, is the only place, or one of the only place, where women have rights. So as I am saying this, I am not saying this as a feminist. I am not saying this as a women's rights activist. I'm saying this because it is a fact. Like, a lot of things that women are able to achieve in the United States, they would not be able to achieve it elsewhere. In a lot of ways where the women in the United States, they are able to compete with the males, they would not be able to do it elsewhere. In a lot of ways where a woman will talk back to you, a woman will tell you, I'm going out, that doesn't happen elsewhere. So when I'm speaking, I'm not speaking in the form of women's rights. I'm just speaking in the form of treatment. Because in my own tradition, the women have their own ways to deal with the men. And most of it is servitude. So I'm not even going to speak and act like the men in my community, they have such a level of worship for the women. It's not a level of worship. I'm not going to place it like that to where I'm escaping reality, and I'm not speaking in the fact of logic. What I'm saying is this. The African American males, they don't listen to the African American women. They don't listen to their own mothers. They don't value their maternal bonds. They don't value it. And because they don't value their maternal bonds, most of them, when they marry, they end up marrying for greed. They end up marrying for good sex. They end up marrying for good head. They end up marrying for greed, sexual greed. Most of the marriages don't last. And most of the marriages that last, by way of the church, by way of other structures that keep those marriages together, they are marriages that are based on lies and deceit. Most of those men, they cheat, if you want to call it that, and they step out on their wives, not understanding that they, like, imagine most of the women that are going to agree to step out on a guy, most of them are on drugs. So when you're stepping out on your wives and you're stepping out mostly with drug addicts, you bring in diseases, you bring in all types of different things to your own household. So because the African American males, most of them don't value their women, and it's the same way that most of them treat their daughters. They don't really value the daughters to uphold and uplift and do all those things or take care of, like for me, I grew up in Brooklyn, and I have to tell you, the first time I ever seen black men take care of their black children openly, outward, where you see black men pushing carriages with children in them, were the biracial children. When you go to Fort Greene, when you go to the park, to Prospect Park, even, you see the black males pushing the children and spending time with their daughters. And most of these daughters, they will be biracial children, light-skinned children. That was the first time I had ever seen black males take care of their children. So this idea of not being of not being a present father, it's become like a marketing gig to around the world. It's becoming okay for the men to not stay home, to not be at home with their children. Like in my tradition, it's becoming where that's a fact in my tradition, but that used to never be that way in my tradition. It used to never be that way. It used to never be where the men would not stay at home to be present in the home to take care of the children. That used to never be the case in my tradition. The men in my tradition, like right now, it's not a majority of fact. It hasn't gotten to the point where it's a majority of fact, but it's becoming very popular for the men in my culture now to play the roles of baby fathers, because it's popular. And a lot of the African American culture, the males, they take the time to make it into products where the media and everybody else will market it and make money off of it and popularize it. It's a manifestation of the music, of the propaganda, and the lifestyle, where the women are minimized. So don't forget what I said at the beginning of this lecture. The first thing that I said is the factor of greed. That's one of the most reasons. That's one of the top reasons why the African Americans, why their marriages don't last and their families don't stay together. Is this idea of greed, and it's this idea of creating a picture of a black. Because the African American males, what they want to do is they want to tell you what a black is. It's a black this, it's a black that, it's a black this. And the image that they're creating of the black is an image of your baby father. You went to jail, you live in the hood, you don't have this, and you don't have, and the people who are popularizing those images, they don't even live in the hood themselves. Most of the people who popularize the image and who put out the products, they don't even live in the hood. So when the people in the hood, they come and they consume this product where they glorify the hood. Oh, it's all about hood. I'm from this hood and I'm from... But that idea did not start. The popularization of that idea was not done by the people in the hood. The people in the hood, they're just copying the style, just like the people in the hood in Haiti do it, just like the people in the hood in Costa Rica do it, just like the people in the hood in Brazil do it, just like the people in the hood in Nigeria do it, because that's what they see on TV. And they gravitate towards it because it works with their bloodstream, it works with their conscience, it calls out to them, and they gravitate towards it. But someone like me will never gravitate towards it because it's not part of my bloodstream. You all have to understand, the blood will help you. When it comes to this type of chaotic situation, your blood will create boundaries for you. If you let it, it will. And even when you don't let it, it will. So I hope that I have stated clearly my POV and my judgments in this matter when it comes to the African American males, and this is part 5. If you happen to come up on my voice, if you happen to listen to the sound of my voice, feel free to give the thumbs up to this broadcast, and feel free to share it, and feel free to subscribe. Okay? In my country, we have polygamy. In my own family structure, we have had polygamy. Let me explain to you how I have seen it. Like in my countryside, I had a cousin who had polygamy. He had his wife and he had another wife, and they both had their own situations. He was able to provide for both of them, and they were both able to coexist. And at the time, my cousin's wife could not have a baby. So the other woman he brought in, his wife allowed him to bring in this woman. And this is how it works in my culture. In my culture, when you marry a man, you have duties to that man. It's not like, oh, I'm going to marry him, he's going to do everything for me, he's going to take care, but you also have to take care of him back. The man is going to give you the financial comfort that you need, but you as a wife, you have to perform your duties. One of the first duties of being a wife is to give this man a child, or 2 or 3 or more. And then for my cousin, his wife could not give him a child, and because that was one of the duties that she could not do, she had to bring in another woman, and my cousin brought in this other woman, and now the child is very grown. She's about 20-something years old now. She had 2 children for my cousin. She had a girl and a son, and the son is very handsome. He looks just like my cousin, very strong young man. The last time I was, he fetched me coconut. We hung out, So that's polygamy in my culture. The Haitian culture is the culture of Hispaniola. Hispaniola is an entire island that belonged to the Haitian people. Okay? The culture of these people in my mountains, that's not necessarily the culture of Americans. You understand? When I say Americans, I say it by default because the black people have hijacked that word and they have given it to the Europeans. But naturally that word belongs to me as well. So I would say United Statian, or African Americans, or white Americans, for you to make the distinction between them and myself. So polygamy is a structure that works. But it works when you follow the rules. If you fail to follow 1 or 2 rules, it's chaos. So within the structure of polygamy, is where I can show you as an example where the African American male, he's naturally greedy. He wants everything. And then most of the greed is sexual. The African American culture is a sexualized culture. Everything is sexual. The people are over-sexualization of everything. The black male uses his penis like a weapon. He uses his penis like a cash prize. It's like ching ching, bang, ching ching, another one. And that's not the function of a human male. It's not to go fuck this and fuck that and fuck this. It's not necessarily that, especially when you are living under poverty. So the division of the African American male, the division between the African American males is very tangible. You can see it. For example, when you look at the African American males who are fraternities, very different culture. This is the culture. They are pure Greeks. You have to understand, most of the African American males who have achieved something, when you look at their mannerism and you look at the way they behave and you look at the way they act like Greeks. Me, when I was little, I studied the cultures of the world. I studied the cultures of the Greek as well. When I was little, I also took Latin. I studied Latin for a few years. I went to a private school. I went to a prestigious school. So I had a very good education in my country, in Haiti. I had top of the line Ivy League education. So the cultures of the Greek, if you go and you study the cultures of the Greek and you look at the African American cultures with the males, you will see that the males, they act just like Greeks. So how can they be taking over black to say black people this, black people that, when you don't even act like most black people? You act like Greeks most of the time. Most black people do not even do the things that you African Americans do. Most black people don't do those things. But because the African American image is a product and they put it on TV and they disseminate it around the world, it's becoming to appear as if most black people do the same thing you do, because you took time to wear that dashiki, you took time to go here and go there and go here and copy this and copy that. And you know, like the African Americans, they are Christians, they are Muslims, they are Greeks, they are everything. They copy everything and they put it in one pot. Without the African Americans, the elites, the white Americans would not have the United States as a territory. It was because of the African Americans that they were able to conquer this territory so easily. Because when they complain that they are slaves, they become homeless and you let them in. And the moment you let them in, that's when your culture becomes ruined, because they're coming in with all of the Greek cultures that they learn from their masters, that they learn from their brothers, who are the white Americans. The white Americans and them, they are brothers and sisters. They have children together, they live together, they have the same mannerism, the same ways. They are brothers and sisters. Those are the Greeks. I'm going to give you a clear example to show to you that these African American males, especially the ones in the fraternities, the ones who have achieved a little bit of education, a little bit of a house. Notice that most of these black males, they be 45 years old, living in an apartment by themselves, living in a house by themselves. What kind of fuck? Most black people don't do that. So how could you say black people, and if I don't agree with you, you hate your own black self? No, motherfucker, I'm Haitian, I have a tradition. I'm not black. That's not what represents me. What represents me is my tradition and my culture. But if I didn't have a tradition and if I didn't have a culture, I would take on the epithet of a black just to pass, just to give myself some relevance and to destroy and fuck up shit along the way. Who identifies themselves just in black and white? Where's your culture? Where's your geography? Where are you from? The people of the world, we have a geographical reference, but for the people who don't, they want to destroy everybody else's geographical reference. So look at the behaviors of these African American males. Most of them who have achieved something, they live by themselves. In my culture, when a man is 40 and he lives by himself, are you crazy? People would stop. Listen, in my Haitian culture, when a man is, it doesn't happen, because if it ever happens, the people in the neighborhood have already labeled you, and you need to get yourself something going on. Okay, in my culture, it's not okay for a man to be 40 years old living by yourself. No way. If that happens in my culture, your mother would bring your girl, your sister would bring your girl, your cousin would bring, nobody would let you live in that house by yourself, because according to us Haitian, when you become that age, you need a woman with you. That's our culture. You need a woman. You need your woman. You need somebody there. You cannot be living by yourself like that. But for the African American males, they live like Greeks. Because if you remember the word of the Greeks, remember the ways of the Greeks. And if I can make you remember the ways of the Greeks, remember what they do. According to the Greeks, for you to get closer to God, you have to deny women. You cannot be close to women. You cannot let women in your heart. You cannot let women in your life. And that's the way the African American males, that's the way they act. They close out their women, they shut down their women, and then they diminish her. And I'm telling you, it is why the African American lifestyle is going down, because of they don't pick up their women. And the women are the most truthful fact of the culture. Okay, the African American women, they are the best. Fact of the, like you can look at an African American woman, she's stripping, she's doing drugs, but she will still have something inside of her that's truthful. She will still have something nice inside of her. And if you ever get lost or you ever in trouble, you will find an African American woman to help you. They are naturally good women, but the men, they ruin them. The way that the men treat those women, they ruin their goodness, they ruin their beauty. The men take too much advantage of the women, and it shouldn't be that way. In any society that's stable, the men, they support the women, they develop the women, they grow the women. Like when you look at the propaganda of the African American males, they call them broke hoes. They call these women broke hoes. In my culture, a woman doesn't have to have money. A woman has to have respect for herself. She has to have a trade, she has to have an education, and after that a man will pick her up and that man will make her rich. Or a woman can go to work and earn her own money. In my culture, it doesn't have to be where men are calling women broke hoes and disrespecting them because they don't have money. Because the men, the culture is telling the men to protect the women, and when you have children with a woman, you take care of your children. It's a totally different culture. The culture of African American males, even like, and what I'm saying is this: you have to also understand the people in the hood, the people in the mass, in the ghetto, they don't get to make those decisions. They just follow those decisions. Because after the African American culture is put together like that, it's gonna be put on TV. Okay, it's gonna be put on TV, and the people of the world are gonna watch it, and the people of the world are gonna copy it, just like the mass of the African American people, they copy it. They make that culture they make it become a culture around the world to where now you can say, oh, black folks do this, and no, black folks don't do this. Black folks don't do that. You, African Americans, you do that, not black folks. In my culture, matter of fact, no, I don't know nobody in my culture, especially in Haiti, that's gonna be 45 years old living by yourself. Most of these African males, they are 50, 45 living by themselves. Like, I ain't never seen no shit like that. Maybe the first time I was seeing that, I was shocked. And then when you ask them where your woman did, oh, I don't need no woman, I can cook for myself. So the African American men, they have this product that they're marketing where, oh, I'm self-sufficient, I can cook for myself, so that's where they ruin life. Because a man and a woman was made to be put together. But the African Americans, they live like Greeks. They don't live like blacks. Me, I'm a black, I don't live that way. Don't stop saying black people do this. I'm a black, I don't do that shit. I don't know no black people who do that shit, okay? I don't know no Cuban man who's gonna be 45 years old living by himself, and he did not even declare his homosexuality. In my country, by the time you get 35 years old, if you don't make that decision, people will declare you for you. Because our tradition, by the time you get 30, you're supposed to be looking for a woman to build. In my country, the men and the women, they build together, not separate. You don't put down the woman and say she cannot work. When you come home, you need somebody to know that your children were properly raised by a responsible mother. Because if the children don't get raised by responsible mothers, it's chaos. So that idea that a man is going to be 40 years old living by, that idea is taking over the world. The African American males, the messages that they bring, this part of their cultures, the elites, they put those things on TV and they share it with the world. It's the marketing, it's a product, and that product makes them money. When the African American males, they make the songs, they distribute the songs around the world and they penetrate the minds of everybody. A lot of people sometimes they accuse me of doing voodoo. Okay, don't accuse me. I do voodoo. Voodoo is my culture. It's not a religion. But for the African Americans who deny voodoo, they do magic every day. They participate in not only magic, they participate in demonic magic every single day by the things they do. And they act like they don't know that they're doing demonic practices. They act like they don't know they're doing demonic magic. One of the most demonic magic that African Americans do is through the music. Do you see how much demons they channel in those fucking songs? Those demons, they come to life. Don't channel the demons and act like you didn't do it. And that's the thing. They are ready to accuse a Haitian and say, oh, you know voodoo, you don't know Jesus. Who the hell is Jesus? Jesus is part of your demonic activities. Jesus is the God of the slaves. Without Jesus, the slaves would not be here in slavery. You got to look at your actions. Every day they do demonic activities. Every single day. They channel demons. And they act like they didn't channel the demons. They act like the Haitians did it. Okay, so keep that black folk rhetoric to yourself. Don't act like, oh, black folks do this. And no, you do that. You a Greek. You act like a Greek and then you want to tell everybody you black folks. You a Greek. You're Greek property. And that's the most ridiculous thing I've seen. The African Americans, they be well off. The males, they be okay, and they don't got one woman in their house to help. Imagine if they would just take one woman. Sometimes you see the women, they need help. The women have 2 children by themselves. What if you just went out with one woman and you could help? But they have music in the streets, rhetoric of broke bitch this and broke bitch. They're not ready. They're not even ready to honor their mother's labor. In my tradition, when a son becomes okay, the first thing he does, he honors his mother, and he does it for the rest of his life. And if his wife doesn't agree, he has to leave the wife. Because the mother cord, the umbilical cord, is the most precious cord. But the African American culture, they tell you Jesus is the most important thing. How could Jesus be more important than your own mother? And then they tell you when you become a man, you leave your mother, you go to your wife. No. Most of the, like in the pure Haitian tradition, when the son marries, most of the time the wife comes to his house with the mother. Because don't forget, if he has sisters, the sisters are going to go to their husbands. So that house is going to stay there. Who's going to live in that house? One person? No way. Nobody's going to let their mother stay in a house by themselves. That's not in our tradition to let this old person stay in their house by themselves. That person needs grandchildren to keep her running. She needs activities. In the real life factor, she needs to be involved with the making of her family. Just because you're older doesn't mean you stop. So we see all these characteristics of the African American males, and then they deny it. When you say it, oh, you're jealous. What am I jealous of? What am I jealous of? Because when I need an African American guy, not even need, when I want to date an African American guy, I find a decent African American guy to date. I find a top of the line African American guy to date. So what am I jealous of? What am I not receiving? What am I not getting? Most of my friends that are African Americans are top of the line. So it's you who should be jealous of me. Because I have the best of African American friends, and all you see is the crap on TV. When I know the real people that are doing real work, that are doing really great stuff, and that are not doing all the nasty, dirty stuff, that are not following the propaganda of dirtiness and nasty. Those are the African Americans I know. You should be jealous of me, because these African Americans are my friends and not your friends. They would never talk to you. They would never talk to the likes of you, but they talk to me. You should be jealous of me. So for the people who have those kind of comments, don't come to my broadcast looking for therapy. This is not your therapy session where I will argue with you back and forth. I don't need the clicks. I don't need you to click back. I don't have monetization. I don't monetize my videos any longer. It's been months. I don't monetize my videos. It's going to be a year soon. I don't monetize my videos. So I don't need to argue back and forth for you to click back. I don't need that. I don't need to submit myself to your demonic energy and argue on YouTube with you over some things that I'm saying that are logically correct. Keep your truth. Keep your church. Keep your culture. But let me keep mine as well. And this is where it is with the African Americans. They think they can dominate me in the name of blackness. They think they can tell me what to do in the name of blackness. Or black people don't do this, black people don't do that. And they think they can tell me what to do. You just came to the Americas. You just got here, nigga. How do you think you can tell me what to do when my culture is ancient and my traditions are ancient and you just got here? Tell yourself what to do. And if you want to tell somebody what to do, go tell the Indians what to do. They're black. Why is it that the African Americans never interfere with the Chinese way of life? On the contrary, they respect it. They kiss the Chinese ass. Because that's what they are taught to do as Greek slaves. But they are taught to bother me. Their slave masters send them to bother me, to take away my traditions and my rights in the Americas. That's their role. That's what their slave masters send them to do. Realize how much an African American will bother you. Like, sometimes I light candles outside my house. African Americans, they pass by. What is that, a candle? But you pass by the Hispanic house, you see a candle, you shut the fuck up. You pass by my house, you see a candle, you want to dominate me. Leave me alone. Let my culture be. You keep on your own culture. You keep developing your own culture. But as you are developing your own culture, you will not get to keep any of... Like, all of the money that you're sacrificing yourself for money to build a ridiculous culture that's destroying you, and you will not get to keep the money, and that's the end game of it. But in the meantime, you will destroy me and I will lose my land. What land do you have in the Americas to lose? What culture do you have in the Americas to lose? Nada. On the contrary, you picking up everybody's shit and you acting like it's yours. And you're doing the same thing your white counterparts are doing, and because you're black, we're supposed to let you? You're doing the same shit the white folks, you call them white folks, you're doing the same shit they're doing, and because you're black, we're supposed to let you? On the contrary, the white folks sent you to do it because you're black. Because everybody see you as black, everybody see you as homeless, but you're the most dangerous creature in the Americas. You and the Dominicans. How you figure I'm from the island of Hispaniola? Hispaniola belongs to my ancestors, and why is it that those Dominicans get to call themselves Hispanic when the island belongs to me? Hispaniola belongs to me. How do you call yourself Hispanic when this is my island, my territory? Because that's what it is. These people, they came in, they took over, they brought in their own race, they mixed the race up, made them light skin, created their own stories, and boom, we lost territory. Fucking with these blacks. Fucking with these slaves. In my island, in my country, in the Americas where I'm from, or where my ancestors are from, slaves have no value. And that's why the African Americans, they work so hard to create propaganda, because slaves have no value. They have to change our minds. They have to entertain us over and over, and they have to exaggerate. They have to imitate art. They have to create all this ridiculous stuff, because in the Americas, slaves have no value. They have value in Africa. People love slaves, but in the Americas, a long time ago, they used to cut the slaves' heads. Because a slave belongs to his master, he'll never do anything good for you, not even for himself or his wife or his children. So these are my thoughts so far, and these are excerpts from my book. I have a new book coming out, and this is on the African American male. At the end of the day, he's not even going to render his maternal value. And I keep telling you guys the story. I know about an African American woman. She has 5 sons. 5 sons, and her house is shabby. In my tradition, if a woman has 5 sons and her house is shabby, the people will shame them to the point where they will have to build her house. Because don't forget, when a woman has 5 sons, she has to carry those children 5 times, unless she had twins or triplets or quintuplets. That's 5 labor, that's 5 pain in a woman's life, on your belly, on your body, and you have to raise those children. In my culture, a woman is rewarded for that job. And the person who should reward you are your children. But in the African American culture, the children abandon the parents. They have to go to their own house and waste their own money, and the wealth, they never get it. The wealth is never built because the children abandon the parents. But it's not like that in my culture. And I don't know any other culture who do it like the African Americans. And the African Americans, you're going to have to own up to your culture and the shits that you do. Put it in a song. I'll probably sing along, but I will never copy it in my mannerism. Because when you put it in a song, to me, it's just art. And I know how to differentiate between art and reality. So me, I resist the magic, the demonic magic that you guys do in the song. Sometimes I'm listening to certain songs, and underneath the songs, you can hear the demonic magic underneath the freaking songs. These African Americans, they do so much demonic magic, especially in the churches. You people do not understand. Oh, excuse me, you people do understand what the fuck you do. That's why you deny it each time. They will deny it. They'll say, why don't you go back to your country? This is my country, bitch. Why don't you go back to your country? If it wasn't for my existence in the Americas, you African Americans would have no value. You came to the Americas copying in my black skin, piggybacking on my black skin to give yourself relevance. This whole doctrine of black people, that's the doctrine you came here with, to kill my relevance, to kill my history, to create commerce, to create propaganda. Most of the businesses that deal with racism are owned by African Americans. Most of the mannerism that we learn about racism, we see it on TV, and African Americans display those mannerisms. They create the whole shit. And then they ask you to copy it because you're black. Get the fuck out of here. Why would I copy you? You're brand new. If I'm going to copy, I'm going to copy my ancient culture. The Jewish copied my culture. The Chinese copied my culture. Why would I copy you? You're brand new when other people are copying me. Hollywood is copying me. And then you asking me to deny my culture and copy you. That's ridiculous. So, I'm Haitian. I have a tradition that's ancient, that's old. And I just gave you plenty of examples to show you the difference between my culture and the African American culture, especially using the males. One of the most poignant examples that I gave you is the fact that the African American males, most of them who become able, who have an undergraduate degree, most of them who have a little house, a little car, most of them who are able to pay rent and do things, they act like Greeks. They behave as Greeks. They don't behave as black people. When you look at the black people around the world, look at all of our cultures. And you will see that a man, when he becomes 30, he has to have a wife. He has to have a woman. And you don't see men living alone with no women in the house. That never happens. Are you crazy? How are you? I don't even understand this thing. How are you going to be a man and you live in a house by yourself? But the African American males, that is what they do, and that is a custom of the Greeks. The Greeks, they don't allow the men to live near women. They prefer men to dominate men. They prefer men to gather in congregation, in gangs. That's the ways of the Greeks. And the Greeks, they prefer the older men to dominate the younger males. And within the Greeks as well, the older men, they will have sex with the younger males to dominate them and to take their strength. That is one of the ways that the Greeks also do demonic magic. When the young males, when they are very young, like 7, 8, 9, 10 to 12 years old, an older man will come and rape him. And in the process of raping him, while he's fearful, that older man will take his strength. It's a demonic magic, and the African Americans, they've been doing it well. They've been a majority, especially in the African American churches. A lot of the people. Why is it that so many gay boys are coming out in the African American churches? Who rapes them? Who takes away their power? It's an older male in the same church, because they practice like the Greeks do. Okay. Don't forget to click like, click the thumbs up. I'm the only African American leader who's going to tell you the truth. The other day I was listening to Judge Joe Brown talk on the radio, and he was also telling you all the truth. Okay? He is now the second leader telling you the truth. I'm the first. You need a leader who's going to lay it down like it is. Because the African Americans, now let's talk about the mass. Within the mass of the African American people are wonderful people who want to learn. They want to change. I have never seen such people. They want to learn. They want to change. They want to buy a book. They want to learn about this, about that. They deserve leaders who can tell them the truth, who can tell them the logic. They deserve it. Hi, Luis Felipe. How are ya? They deserve it. And I do my service. I have done a lot of service within the African American community. I'm a leader for you. But I'm not going to be walking you, and I'm not going to be destroying my culture for you. Oh, you're welcome, Luis Felipe. You're welcome, dear. All right, guys, I am going to depart. I'm going to go. I bid you all a good night. And you go and you look at the manifestation of those people's behaviors and see if what I just said was not the absolute logic. Okay, look at their behaviors. They behave like Greeks. Look at them. And for the men who are, like for the African-American males who are in the mass, they just go in with the fads, with the popularity of things. They don't measure the effects of it. They don't measure how it affects you, me, and themselves. Because they're just going with the flow of things. They're just going with the trend of things. They're not thinking about the true culture or value of it even, because where is the culture for them to copy? This is brand new. This is trial and error. So whatever it is that they copy, it's the most ancient thing there is for them to copy is the ways of the Greeks. It's the Bible. It's the Bible. It's the ways of the Greeks. The cultures of the Greeks are there in the Bible. There are places in the Bible where those apostles or whatever, I don't know what they are, but these people will tell you to get closer to God, you have to abandon women. But my culture is not like that. My culture will tell you, for you to make any type of movement forwards, you have to keep your woman close to you. Like a lot of men in my culture, without their women, there will be nothing right now. Like look at the president, the president Michel Martelly. Without his wife, he would not even be president. So the African-American men, they deny the strength of the women, and they cannot go anywhere. So they will never go anywhere, because we all need our women to move forward. So that's the culture. But that's not what black people do. That's what you do. That's what you do as a Greek slave.